Gentlemen, I have a problem. I'm staring down the barrel of 30 this year. Well, if you're not familiar with this trope, men have a few options when they turn 30. You either get really into golf or some other BS sport, you enjoy smoking meats, or you develop a esoteric level of knowledge about World War II. I'm gonna be honest, of all my options, World War II is my favorite. You may be already thinking, Adam, I already thought you were really into World War II, and I am. The problem is, I don't have a gross esoteric level of knowledge on World War II. I'm still playing at the JV level, guys. When you get past 30, it's time to step it up to varsity. And what does that even look like? It's like knowing the military operations and all these small details about, like, say, a specific unit in a specific theater. Will I ever get there as a non-academic person? I'm the kind of guy that failed Algebra 2 in high school. Funny enough, now that I do YouTube, I actually do a lot of research and write papers. Well, not papers, but write scripts and dive into topics and get really niche and into the details and try and boil that down to make things interesting for you guys. All that to say, I wanted to make this video on what is the best small arm of World War II. Now, as gun guys, we often think about firearms in World War II, mainly because it's the one thing that most of us can own. Whether you're a really well-off collector owning transferable machine guns, or you're the broke college kid and you really just want a piece of history, you can afford a Mose. So for most of us, it's an easy way to get into it. Sig Sauer hasn't bought me out yet, so I don't have a Panzer IV, or else this would be the Panzer IV channel. Hell, maybe even the Tiger Tank channel, if I can steal a Tiger Tank. Not there yet. I'll sell out for a cool German Big Cat tank so long as there's all the fuel and maintenance and ammo for it. I mean, that's gotta be live fire. I'm not selling out for a non-live firing tank. We're gonna make it happen. What if Olight just buys me a Tiger Tank? Hello, we heard you want Tiger Tank. We buy you Tiger Tank. You Oz now. Now, World War II, massive conflict. For whatever reason, dudes just gravitate towards it. From a military historical perspective, there's so much going on. There's so many different theaters. There's so much development in military technology, and it is like the never-ending pit of things you can discover. Conflict spans, 5 years. 39, 40, 41, 2, 3. Well, 39, 40. That's 5 years, right? 39 to 45. That's 6 years. Yeah, my bad. Conflict spans for 6 years overall, and so much happened within those 6 years. You go from biplanes to fighter jets, you go from bolt actions to assault rifles, and in terms of military small arms, there are a few of them that come out, and they are kind of the top of the pile, the king of the mountain. Even funny enough, though, they all get phased out pretty much right after World War II because everyone's kind of chasing the next evolution of what's going to be better than what we had during World War II. Now, within all of the firearms, you have the different categories, right? You have your bolt actions, your semi-autos, your submachine guns, your light machine guns, you have your carbines and your pistols. Now, amongst all the different kind of categories of these firearms, is it like comparing apples to oranges? Are we going to compare a BAR to like a bolt action? And in some ways, yes. We're kind of taking a look at the overall, what were the best of the conflict, from my opinion. And it's just that, my opinion. The reason we can go off of my opinion is that, funny enough, I have shot most of the World War II small arms. There are still some that elude me. You know what's crazy? I haven't shot an M2 Browning. It's kind of crazy, given the years I've done this. I also haven't gotten my hands on a FG42 yet. They're out there, and whether they're semi-auto, but a legit World War II FG42 costs as much as a house. They were very expensive, and so if there's anyone out there that's like, hey, we want you to film a YouTube video with it, go run around, shoot it about. It's really hard to find. Like, it's moonrock rare pretty much.
你好，我们听说你想要 FG42，我们给你买 FG42，你现在是我们的了。
Now, this is kind of tough because when you try and rank these, the more you kind of learn about this stuff, the more you kind of realize, like, it's hard to go a flat-out ranking across the board because of all these different details. Like, yes, the Arasaka in 7.7 Jap compared to an M1 Garand is going to be, to us, inferior. But for the Japanese, it was a very well-built bolt-action rifle. But that being said, in today's standards, when we look back and we can say, okay, well, in this hypothetical fictional scenario, if I could have any of these guns, which one would it be? It's kind of like the parameters I'm putting around this. Realistically, if you get dropped off in Japan, the chances are they're going to give you an Arasaka Arisaka Type 99 to go fight with, right? If you're dropped off in Germany, they're gonna be like, all right, dude, here's your K98K. You don't get to say like, all right, it's Call of Duty time, I get to pick the gun I want. It's not like that. But for the sake of this video, we can play with the parameters of like, all right, if I was dropped back in time and there was no constraints on what small arm I had to carry, what would it be? You think we should do a ranking? Do you think we should rank them? Is that too played out? Okay, guys, we're ranking them. Gentlemen, I regret to inform you I'm competing with big tech on this platform. So that's why I gotta thank the sponsors of this video. Gentlemen, we have a new channel sponsor, Die Free Co. LLC, aka DefCo. Now, I'm excited to bring them on the channel as a sponsor because I have actually enjoyed using their products. This is one of their products right here. And it does an excellent job being a comfy grip for your said platform of choice. Hailing from Dover, New Hampshire, the gentlemen that started DefCo actually have a very impressive pedigree within the firearms world. They set their sights on starting a company focused around grips and other accessories. Now, I've been using the DefCo grips on the channel for a bit now. You've probably seen them pop up here and there. I am someone that usually leans a little bit towards the retro cloner militaristic vibe. Like on this particular MP5, I used to have an A2 grip. I actually didn't really like it that much, and I threw on this grip after using it for a bit, and I like this grip a lot more. The grip angle is really nice. There's a good aesthetic look to the grips themselves, and I do appreciate it in that sense. What I like about DefCo, particularly their Kung Fu grips, they have a good pairing of ergonomic functionality with aesthetically pleasing nature to the eye. Now, that may sound easy to do, but in engineering and design, that can be rather hard to pull off. They actually pulled it off. So, if you're on the market for something like this, I would encourage you to check out Die Free Co. And of course, Americana Pipes and Apparel. It's actually where I got my pants from. Pan down. Pan up. Pan up. Too much. Too much. Fantastic zoomers getting after the military space and arena, night vision knives, manuals, e-bikes, and of course military surplus clothing and American-made clothing that I think is really cool. They gotta get attention to detail. I like those guys a lot, and we've had a wonderful relationship for years, but what you need to know about is a discount. Code ADME gets you 10% off your order. Optics Planet! Yeah, we live on a planet. They have optics. I gotta be careful what I say on here because of YouTube, but Optics Planet can have you covered, and I appreciate them very much for being the optical sponsor of Administrative Results. I hate it here. YouTube big algorithm rules suck my... And of course, we gotta thank another sponsor, SDI, the Sonoran Desert Institute, a DEAC accredited online college focused on firearms technology. From 1911's bolt actions and even modern sporting rifles. SDI's program includes structured coursework and hands-on components completed at home. You can learn more about sdi.edu with a link in the description down below. Now, to me, pretty much all of the bolt-action rifles across the board in this ranking would fall into C tier. They're not terrible, typically across the board, but they're not desirable to compare to what is out there. I can maybe think of one that could get bumped up to potentially A tier. The problem is that bolt-action rifle, and we've talked about it on the channel a bunch within recent videos, was like a one-off experimental design. That rifle in the A tier for bolt-action rifle will be a Grabitz carbine with a ZF41 scope. Because it's a light, nifty gun, you have some level of magnification, and it's really like the first proto scout rifle. And the scout rifle concept could actually hold up in a World War II conflict. You know, the scout rifleman could be some kind of like point man or guy that's up ahead doing recon, and so having a light, nifty rifle, that being the Grabitz carbine, with a ZF41 optic seems really cool in my mind. How would it play out in practicality? I don't know, but in my head it's 100% A tier. K98K is really good. It could potentially be in B tier. Potentially the K98K could stay strong in the B tier with those ZF41 optics. I'd rather have that than just a C tier iron sight only bolt action rifle. The Enfield number 4, really good, could potentially be in B tier. The Mosin Nagant, you know, the Soviet Mosin Nagant, I'm not really a big fan of. The only perk it really has is like they just made a bunch of them. The Springfield 1903A3 could be a really good gun bumped up into B tier. I do love the fact that even despite it being a bolt-action rifle and the Americans getting M1 Garands, guys would still want to run them. And I picked this detail up from World War Wisdom that I thought was really cool. He had a particular instance where he was talking about guys using Springfields preferring them for the rifle grenade function. Rifle grenades were a massive deal in World War II. And so the fact that you could have a magazine cutoff, load a blank at the top, have your rifle grenade, you don't have to worry about any sort of like swapping out ammunition or cycling to the next round, because you can just uncut the gun and have your normal rifle rounds underneath that blank charge for launching your rifle grenade. I think that's really cool with the Springfield. Arisaka, you know, I don't want to blow past the Arisaka because Arisaka is actually a really cool bolt-action rifle. People think of like the Japanese firearms, like for whatever reason they kind of look down on them, but like the Japanese attention to detail and quality on their guns is actually really good. I just don't like the idea of using a bolt-action rifle. The Carcanos are actually really good bolt-action rifles. I really do like their TS model. Now that being said, my experience using it hasn't been that great, but if I had everything in line to use that little bolt-action rifle, I would rather have that. It would be like the Gerbitsjäger and the Carcano TS if I had to use bolt-action rifles. I like the idea of a light, nifty little bolt-action. The nice thing about the Carcano is that it's a smaller round with that 6.5 Carcano than say an 8mm Mauser. So at least it's like not as abusive when you shoot it. I still think, of course, the Gerbitsjäger with the ZF41 blows a Carcano TS out of the water. But it's like the Gerbitsjäger with the ZF41, it's just like a one-off, didn't really happen. I mean, without the ZF41, I may still go with the Gerbitsjäger carbine. I'm not sure. Does that sound too wearaboo-ish? I mean, I'm Italian, half Italian at least, so maybe the Carcano will speak to me. Oh, boop-a-boop-a-boop. Your mom make good spaghetti? Not really. She's from the Midwest. My mom is not Italian. It's my dad's side. I love my mom, but she doesn't make a good sauce. She doesn't make a good gravy. I think generally a quick swath of the bolt-action rifles is acceptable because we can get to the semi-autos. Now the semi-autos is where it gets interesting because there's really 3 big semi-autos. There was a number of them that existed, different countries tried, but the 3 that were most successful. Obviously, M1 Garand. Second would be the SVT-40 and of course the Gewehr 43. Well, we're also forgetting our forgotten son, the Johnson 1941. So of those 4, I suppose, that I can think of off the top of my head, what would be the bangers? I know the Japanese tried to copy the M1 Garand, it didn't work out for them. Garand is, of course, S tier. It's just so hard to beat. Despite it lacking 2 rounds compared to the rest, the in-block clip just works so well, and you can shoot it so fast if you needed to in a pinch. The recoil impulse is really good. It's a very soft shooting gun. Like, we did a bunch of filming with the K98K, with that sniper video, and that recoil was eating me up after a bit. Yet again, I gotta give credit to Henry Chan for this, because part of this video actually came from a conversation we had, but he was saying in one of his videos that even veteran Wehrmacht soldiers didn't want to fire more than 30 rounds in an engagement from their K98Ks. The gun does kind of beat you up. That made me really appreciate, after filming that video, shooting at M1 Garand. The recoil impulse from a 30-06 like that in a semi-auto with 8 rounds of an in-block clip. I mean, there's a reason Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. I mean, that's a big statement coming from a conflict where you have like aircraft carriers, nuclear bombs, and ordnance that has like timed exploding shells in them. But the M1 Garand is pretty dang good. You pair that with some black tip armor-piercing ammo, and it's pretty much up there in S tier. It does have some drawbacks, but without a doubt, it's still 100% S tier. As far as like wanting to use it, pretty high up there. The next one will go with the SVT-40. Pretty cool gun. Even the Germans loved picking up and using the SVT-40. I mean, well, when all you have is a K98K or other bolt-action rifles, a semi-auto seems pretty sick. Chances are, if you're a German and you're doing well in the beginning of the war on the Ostfront, you're probably capturing a bunch of ammo for them too, so you can feed those things until that stockpile runs out, and you probably just go grab your K98K if it does, if you survive that long. The SVT-40, kind of a musket, very gassy from what I can remember and recall. A nice big beefy round. In the scale of World War II, I think it's still an A tier, 100%. A 10-round semi-automatic, detachable box magazine you could feed shipper clips with, pretty hard to beat. And of course, Gewehr 43. Gewehr 43, funny enough, despite it being German, they had big quality issues with it. I mean, the Gewehr 43 is like the Germans copying the Soviets' homework for a semi-auto rifle. They're like, okay, they figured it out, let's try and copy it. I mean, it's a good gun. Of the battle rifles, it looks the coolest. The problem is the gun had a tendency to beat itself apart. Even today, you would need a shooter's kit to make sure you're just not beating that gun apart. The recoil is pretty stout. I think of those 3, that recoil is the most intense. M1 Garand, probably the softest shooting, but the Gewehr 43 has its issues. It's tough, dude. I like the Gewehr 43. It almost feels like a B tier weapon in some ways. Yeah, it's my channel. I might just have to call the Gewehr 43 a B tier, which is kind of crazy to think about, given the fact that some of the bolt actions are creeping up into B tier. I guess I'd rather have that than the K98K so long as it works. And of course, the forgotten son, the Johnson 1941. WW1 saw, early service in the Pacific with the Marines. I mean, they're hitting the beaches in these conflicts, these early campaigns with Springfield 1903 A3s. It's the fact that some of the more high-speed Marine units, like the paratrooper Marines, could get their hands on Johnson weapons, whether they're the LMGs or the rifles. It's like, yeah, I'd rather have a Johnson than, say, just a regular bolt-action rifle. The problem is it kind of has the 5-round stripper clips you have to feed into it, and then you have to do that twice. So then you have a 10-round magazine. The gun balances well. You have this barrel that protrudes out. The thing working against it is that you have a thin bayonet. You have a little poker pretty much compared to, say, a more beefy bayonet like the M1 Garand. Having a bayonet when you're fighting the Japanese would be kind of nice. That fighting was brutal in case you got to poke a body that may be pretending to be dead. But the recoil system on it called for a lighter bayonet. The Johnson, though, I would still put it maybe in A tier. I think it's still a good gun. You load up your 5, gun handles and wields nicely, decent recoil impulse, you're firing 30-06. The problem is just Johnson lost out to Garand, and Garand's the rifle that we all know and love. Problem with this video is it really is starting to feel like apples to oranges once you start going across different styles of firearms, because now we're going to take a look at submachine guns. The Thompson line of firearms. The Thompson, I think, gets glazed too much. I have shot the Thompson configurations. I will say that I think they are an option that exists. The problem is that they are such heavy guns for 45 ACP. The stock is so goofy. It doesn't carry well. What you gotta think about this stuff, even despite you being in a world war, you're carrying and living with these guns more than you're actually fighting. It's like probably 95 to 99% boredom depending on what theater you're in, and then 5 to 1% sheer terror once it kicks off. If you're in Stalingrad, it's probably like 100% terror all the time. But for most of the theaters, most of the times, it's just like sheer boredom. You have to carry and lug these things around. When it comes to a Thompson, I can't imagine having to do a long march with that awkward gun. It's a very heavy gun for a submachine gun. So I really got to put it in B tier. Thompson, absolutely a B tier gun. Oh, it's just something I'd rather have that than a bolt action. It's like, yeah, but some of the bolt actions carry better and way less than a Thompson. And with 45 ACP, you gotta realize that it's pretty much like a airsoft gun on steroids. I don't want to get shot with it, but the feet per second from a 230 grain ball ammo is like 800, 900 feet per second. For most airsoft games you go to, like an outdoor field, their legal limit is 400 feet per second for like most AEGs.
That's not full enough. This is. That's full enough. Damn, bro. Okay.
It's literally double an airsoft BB. In the right lighting, you can pretty much watch those things fly to the target. Call your hits. Beats you all the way. This video is turning out to be harder than I thought. We're kind of really getting to the apples to oranges. I don't care though. I'm gonna roll the dice on this one. Look at me, world! Mr. John World War II! Grease gun, I think the grease gun's better than the Thompson. Really cheap, easy to make. Thompsons were expensive too. A grease gun, I gotta say, for a submachine gun and an overall small arm, A tier in my opinion. Despite it being 45 ACP, it's still very much a convenient submachine gun to carry around. You got that wire stock that can collapse down. Carrying it inside of vehicles or tanks would be a lot easier than a big old Thompson. So I like that a lot more. I think, just the cheap overall nature. If the gun wears out or just doesn't work, you just freaking dispose of it and go get another grease gun. I'd like that about them. A tier all the way. I have shot a grease gun. Yes, I have shot a grease gun. Can't speak to any of the Japanese submachine guns. Never even got my hands on them. I'm sure there's some pros and cons about them. They kind of look like a better version of the Stens with the side-fed magazine, higher quality, but I just can't really speak to it that well. We just did the Rising submachine gun. If it had bigger mags, I would bump it up a little bit, but because of the reliability, because of only 20 or 12 round magazines, to me it still feels like a B tier gun. The strengths about it is that it carries a lot better than the Thompson. Better shooting than the Thompson. It's a closed bolt as opposed to an open bolt, so you don't have the big ka-shunk going down when you pull the trigger, and I like it a lot. Yet again though, they saw pretty limited service, probably rear echelon service, once they kind of figured out that they weren't optimal to the rigors of campaigns. MP40, phenomenal submachine gun in my opinion. A tier. Deletes recoil, for the most part, open bolt. Despite all of that, once you really get cooking with it, you're just beaming it out to a certain distance where you want that 9mm to go. I like it a lot. It's 9mm, so it's not God's cartridge of 45 ACP. That being said, you can carry 9mm a lot more comfy than you would with 45 ACP. With Thompson mags, when you load them up with that 45 ACP, especially like say in the 5 cell that I have, that's a lot of weight on your hip. It doesn't really balance out out well with that webbing. At least the Germans had a better balancing out of the web gear that goes along with their MP40 in that regard. It's like a little bit more front of the body, as you're gonna have 3 and 3, so it could balance out better. I mean, once you start shooting, it's gonna start getting all cattywampus, but whatever. Sten gun, gotta give it probably solid, I mean, for what the Sten gun is, though, it can't be better than the Thompson. It can't be on the same playing field as the Thompson. But the beauty of the Sten gun is like, just they got something to work. It's like a grease gun, but worse. Tick, 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 tick. And for what the Sten gun is, dude, I gotta give it C tier. I wouldn't want to use a Sten gun if I had to. That being said, it's like in the same category as using a bolt-action rifle, in my opinion. At least one of the worst ones. I don't know if I'd want to use a Sten gun or a number 4. I think I'd rather probably use an Enfield number 4 over a Sten gun. Is that crazy? Some of the later versions of the Sten guns, when they added more furniture, got a little bit better. Even still, like, they never made the gun really good and modular. Like, I really think the Sten gun could have used like a wire stock that could have collapsed down. Maybe they tried it, just wasn't feasible. But if they would have done that, it could have bumped it up higher. The Soviets had some banging submachine guns. PPSH-41 and the PPS-43. Really good submachine guns. And it's chambered in their 7.62 Tokarev round. So you already have a much more aggressive chambering of the gun, a very high cyclic rate, and just a super simple setup. Extremely simple setup for those guns. I think I like the fire rate of the PPSH-41 a lot. It's a very aggressive fire rate. I think they slowed it down for the 43 if I can recall correctly. But the 41, especially if you had a drum mag, it fits like the Soviet aggro energy of like, all right, frontal assault, we're just gonna suppress them and push them, and if, you know, we die, we die. Like, it fits that vibe really well. Especially once you start getting into the cities, like a PPSH-41's just like, I've been smoked so much playing Hell Let Loose when you're on the German faction, and then you just hear like the burp of the PPSH-41, and you're like, oh God, especially with a Kar 98K, you're like, I have one shot. I have one chance to kill this guy. And when you're like the Soviets with the PPSH-41, you're like, all right, yeah, turn the corner. Try it. If you actually get killed by a K98K, it's like, you deserve that. I was gonna wreck you. You just zip them up. I think PPSH-41 has to be A tier submachine gun. Absolutely A tier. The 43, I would still put an A tier. You know, simple gun, pretty solid. I'd like to use that over a Thompson or a grease gun. I think the machining on them are usually pretty solid. You gotta get to the Soviets on that one. The Italians had some submachine guns, and they would be used. I think like the Waffen SS would pick them up and use them. I think I shot one, but it's like such a hazy memory. We filmed the video on it, but there was an audio issue, so it never really saw the light of day. But they had some cool submachine guns. Like, funny enough, the Italians have kind of like a good level of craftsmanship. It's in the uncanny valley of being like really practical and over-engineered in a way, if that makes any sense. Like, if you compare it to like a grease gun, you're like, yeah, this makes more sense.
I gotta address it, but I know that I'm missing a decent chunk of certain small arms that saw some good usage in World War II, right? There were many variants leading up to World War II that saw action because it was a massive conflict. So if I am missing anything that you're like, dude, I loved this, and you missed it, I apologize. I'm just one guy, right? Yet again, failed Algebra 2 in high school. Sorry, fellas. So for that, I do apologize. So if you're like, well, what about the Suomi or what about the Swiss K31 bolt-action rifle? I'm going off the top of my head of like what was the most prevalent guns that I could think of. Because with a conflict that big, there are so many guns that get used and they get folded into a unit, and that unit goes off and sees service. But off the top of my head, when I'm yapping out in the desert, it falls through the cracks, so I do apologize. Also, I may have been too hard on the Sten gun and the French small arms, so for that, I do apologize. I'm only human.
Light machine guns, keeping it light. Let's cover them. We gotta knock it out. Let's just cover the FG42, best that I can. The FG42 is in a really weird slot of firearms, and it inspired a number of guns afterwards. If it was more widely issued, it would be an absolutely S-tier weapon. It's like this weird uncanny valley of being an LMG. They threw magnification on them to get like a magnified optics. You could call it like a sniper variant if you wanted to. To me, personally, the FG42 is like a quasi-battle rifle. You have so many features about it. It's a 20-round detachable box magazine. It's pretty compact overall compared to some of the others in the light machine gun category. So it kind of does feel like a battle rifle. You have a built-in bipod. You have really good optical sights. And then, of course, if you have magnification, you have this really good all-together package, in theory, if they work well. The problem is that they just didn't see a massive adoption by the Heer or the Waffen SS. And really, I mean, it's a gun for the Luftwaffe. So it's like you have your Fallschirmjägers, and your paratrooper corps is not supposed to be a massive entity. They're supposed to be like these elite troops that you use for certain instances for seizing things behind enemy lines. It's a very dangerous job, so giving them a lot of firepower makes a lot of sense. I would love, if I was dropped in World War II, whatever theater I'm in, I would rather have an FG-42 so long as I can feed it with ammo, especially pair that with an optic. Yeah, that's S tier, despite me never even shooting or using one. Like, the idea of it to me is brilliant because you have so much 8mm Mauser. If you're the Germans, you're not worried about like, oh, we're gonna run out of 8mm Mauser. We still can buy 8mm Mauser today because they have so much, and it's a round that kept getting made. Maybe it's A tier because of just like it wasn't used enough to really be like that, it's like the K98K was still so prevalent. But dang, is it like not a really cool gun. BAR. Well, hold on. That one is kind of tough to categorize. Is it a light machine gun? Is it just is it a battle rifle? Is it a sniper? I don't know. It's just in this uncanny valley of being a gun. I could have swore I just saw a UFO. Maybe I'm just going crazy. I was crazy once. They locked me in a room. A rubber room with rats, and rats make me crazy. BAR, dude, it's such a sick gun. It feels all American, peak horsepower, 30-06. It's heavy. It's a hoss. I don't know if I'd want to carry that thing around as much as I'd want to shoot it. Like, if you're carrying it, you're probably like, this thing sucks. I hate this, especially with the carry handle and the bipod. But once it comes time to employ it, it's gotta be like, oh yes, my time to shine. But you only have 20 round detachable box magazines. So the gun feels like it would be a steampunk battle rifle on steroids. You just have the option for fully automatic. That being said, it's an open bolt weapon, so it's not gonna be the most accurate, but guys could probably get pretty good with them with that open bolt system. If they could have made it a little bit lighter, I think the BAR could have ranked higher. I really gotta put it maybe in, I'd probably put the BAR like in B tier of what I'd wanna use and carry around and have to live with. That being said, when it does come to rip off 20 rounds of 30-06, it's gotta feel pretty good. Like watching Ryben and Saving Private Ryan rip off his BAR, it's always like, yeah, that's pretty sick, dude. I would definitely wanna carry a more stripped down version with a nice hefty sling. Brin gun, gotta talk about the Brin gun. I think Brin gun, S tier. Gotta start with that. I mean, it's a beefy light machine gun in some ways compared to what we know today, but that being said, you got a 30 round detachable box magazine. Those 10 extra rounds, especially with the top fed magazine system, is pretty sick. It's inspired from like the Czechoslovakian weapons of their light machine gun. But that being said, I think the British absolutely knocked it out of the park with selecting the Brin gun and developing it and making it happen. You have a quick change barrel, you have so much into it that makes the BAR look outdated and antiquated, and I think they are pretty sick. Pretty man-portable, so if you needed to shoot it, when you're not like proned out, you can absolutely do it. I like it a lot. I think overall, very cool gun. With so many weapons on the list, you see them pop up post-World War II and Cold War conflicts, and the Brin gun's absolutely no exception. They even will rechamber them to be in 308. Like I think of the Rhodesians using Brin guns rechambered in 308. They'd even weld magazines together to give them probably like a 40 rounder on top of that Brin gun. And of course they'd get the mags, but whatever, we're getting off topic. I don't think I've actually ever shot a Brin light machine gun now that I think about it, Colton. Perhaps one day.
你好，我们听说你想要
The Soviet DPMs, the Soviet light machine guns. Not really a big fan of those ones. A big old pizza disc magazine setup. Not my jam, dude. I don't want to have to deal with those kind of mags. For me, that's like a solid C tier. Granted, if it was that or a Mosin, I'd probably take that. I'd probably run that LMG over a Mosin, if I'm being honest. I think it's a DPM 28, I want to say. Still, for me, those Soviet LMGs gotta be like, yeah, solid C tier. Oh, the Japanese light machine guns. Type 99, I think Type 11. I've never seen them IRL. I know they're out there. I know they exist. I know one has like the weird magazine setup where it feeds with like stripper clips. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to carry that. There's also the other one that is a detachable box magazine from the top. I'd probably do that one a little bit better, but for me, being so unfamiliar with them, I don't want to deal with them, so I'd probably just shove them into C tier. That's just a me personal opinion though. Medium machine guns. MG42, S tier. MG34, S tier. Two phenomenal medium machine guns. Both have their strengths, both have some weaknesses, but overall, in the landscape of World War II, just absolutely king medium machine guns. I mean, they're pretty much universal machine guns, designed to be used in a wide variety of roles. But as far as the man-portable, infantry-orientated aspect goes, I think they're phenomenal. I've even been shot at by both of them, and they're terrifying. MG42 especially. The 34 is really cool with the quick change barrel because the gun rotates and it's more in line, where the 42 you have to swing it open, and so it's more of a swinging. So there's a reason like vehicles, within gunner seats inside of tanks use a 34 for that quick change barrel aspect. Fire rate is, I think, a little bit more appropriate on the 34. You're just gonna burn through barrels and ammo on that 42, but dang is it not aggressive. Like if I was defending a position, intuitively I think I would rather have a 34. If I was assaulting a position, I would probably want a 42. And I could be asked backwards because I was never a machine gunner, but the idea of like an aggressive suppression with a string of fire, and it's like, okay, you have to do a barrel change. Because I think their doctrine was every 200 rounds they would do a barrel change. Now I could see that being a problem on the assault because it's like you want to keep up a steady rate of fire, so maybe the 34 will be better, but it's like for just the sheer aggression of it, dude, that 42 feels like, all right, there's a bunker, we got to assault. You're just ripping 42. Like you're going to keep their heads down quick. But once those 200 rounds are over, and they're over pretty quick, your guys are kind of left without cover unless you have another MG42 doing talking guns. So maybe that'd be the trick, right? You're not just going alone with one machine gun, ideally. Wow, that was a tangent. See, it's working. Getting into the esoteric details of World War II, it's working. The American Brownings, the 30 cals, jeez, dude. Not the biggest fan as far as medium machine guns go. Because at least with the 42 and 34, if you wanted to shoot those more man-portable, and you can see footage of like Germans doing that, where they kind of grip the bipod and will rip it on the move, or like from an uncanny position. Like the Brownings don't seem as good for that. Like they had to rig up some weird carry handle thing that goes around the barrel if you wanted to kind of like shoot and scoot with it. The gun's just not optimal. They would rig up stocks for him, but even then, it's such a big, beefy gun. Like you just have this massive receiver, and that's pretty cool. But as far as like wieldiness goes, it's not that awesome in my opinion, unless you're like hitting the deck and setting it up like they would do. I mean, we won the war, so it obviously is better than the 42. But I mean, there's more details that go into this. For me personally, the Brownings, I give them a B tier. It feel pretty good when you have to start shooting them, but for me, it's a B tier gun. A lot of countries had like the older Maxim style machine guns where you have like this big medium machine gun setup with the water jackets. Dude, C tier. I just don't have to deal with all that. It's a lot of weight you have to carry around. You carry around this big tripod, the water, the gun itself, the ammo. Yeah, you need a whole freaking crew for that. But at least you can just shoot those things out the wazoo because they have the cooling system. So that's kind of cool. Pun intended. Got the Lewis gun. The British had the Lewis gun. I mean, that's a World War I remnant too, like the BAR. Weird pizza disc setup. Don't necessarily love it a bunch. I think if you strip it down a little bit more, it'll probably be a little bit more convenient. Yeah, for me, C tier for the Lewis gun. I haven't shot a Lewis gun, so kind of speaking on my ass on that one. I feel bad, we didn't cover any French weapons. I feel like Ian's gonna come out of nowhere and zap me with a MAS 36. MAS 36, I think, is a really phenomenal bolt-action rifle, but it still, for me, kind of falls into the C tier category. I believe the French were working on a semi-automatic rifle prior to World War II. They just couldn't pull it off. I could have swore they dusted off show shots for World War II. Still don't want to use it. Gotta be like an absolute D or F tier if that's the case. I'm trying to remember the name of the French light machine gun. It looks like an absolute just complicated gun to deal with. So for me, it's probably like a C tier. Like I'll figure it out, but I don't want to have to use it. You're probably wondering, Admin, you haven't even covered pistols yet. What are you doing? And that's because realistically, a pistol is something that I would be carrying on me if given the option. Pistols are, in the grand scheme of a conflict like World War II, kind of like this weird side character that's not very important until they are. It's a very personal defense weapon. It's borderline like having a knife that could reach out and touch someone when you are fighting a conflict that have planes dropping massive bombs. I gotta throw you World War II pistol guys a bone. I'll cover it quickly. 1911, hands down, S tier, won World War II. Ha ha ha, he said the joke. Realistically, I'd probably put it more in a B tier handgun. C96, if it's there, which would be like crazy, but probably C tier. Browning high power would be S tier. Pistol to use. If I was to pick my loadout, it would be like a high power pistol, probably be the Belgian pistol that they had, like the Germans rolled through, because I know the Germans picked up a lot of high powers, would absolutely run a high power all day, every day of the week. Any of the other pistols in the category, maybe the P38 would be more of an A tier. I'm kind of rapid firing this. Luger, C tier. P08 Luger, I mean, everyone's like, when you think of Bandit Brothers, it's like, I promised my kid brother a Luger. Malarkey, you're gonna get yourself killed. Oh, they probably think he's a medic. Okay. Oh, jeez. Yeah, I mean, the Luger's kind of overrated. It's definitely a very cool, elegant firearm, but as far as like a practical gun I want to carry during World War II, high power blows them all out of the water. I'd rather have the high power. Rest of them, I'd probably not want to use, whatever they are. They're all cool. They're all collectible if you can get a cool one. I know the Japanese have very collectible handguns. I don't like any of them. I think they are not desirable to me in terms of practicality. Okay, we covered that. We're all happy. We good? Are you good? Does this video feel good?
Yeah, I like it.
All right, final category. You're probably thinking, admin, you're gonna put the SEG-44 in S tier. You'd be wrong. I'd actually put the SEG-44 into A tier, and there's a reason behind it. And you're probably gasping and clutching your pearls. The big reason is the SEG-44, in theory, is another one of those guns that sounds really cool. The problem with an SEG-44 is that they had a massive reject rate. I came across this fun clip of Ian McComb on the Unsubscribed podcast, and he was talking with Brandon Herrera about this. Now, another thing you gotta think about too is the logistical supply chain of late war Germany during World War II. They're not doing well. And on top of that, if you compound that with guns that may be getting out that don't function that well as they're designed to, it's not going to be as optimal. Like, in theory, yes, an SEG-44 that works well and reliably would be like a godsend in that conflict when you're dealing with Soviet infantry or American infantry that either have 8-shot M1 Garands or they have 5-shot Mosins and PPSH-41s, but like an intermediate cartridge of 8mm Kerrs, it sounds awesome if the gun works reliably. Now, I'm sure there was absolutely no problem with the SEG-44s that some guys may have gotten. Probably were like 100% functional. Magazines worked. The gun ran reliably. The problem is like at the end of the war, this isn't going to be the game-changing invention that you think it would have been. Granted, it's of course a massive deal because it goes on to reshape firearms as we know it, with it being the grandfather of the modern-day assault rifle. But in terms of World War II, I mean, I'm still going to rank it high of like what gun I would want to use. The SEG-44 ranks high if it works well, and I have plenty of ammo to use for it. That's the big issue. Like if I have an SEG-44 that barely works, I might as well just go take a K98K, because at best I have to like cycle the bolt nonstop. I have shot an SEG-44, and even that one, which was a legit SEG-44, was having issues with feeding from the magazines. I had to download the mags to make sure it could even run. So my trust for the weapon isn't that high. That being said, if it works really well, it could bump it back up to S tier, and I would use that over anything else. But it's a big but. All right, last weapon that, I kind of was teasing because I think it is the best small arm of World War II. And I don't think it gets enough praise for it being the best small arm of World War II, but it has to be the M1 carbine. My God, the M1 carbine. And the entire reason this video exists because I was talking to Henry of 9-Hole Reviews, and we were chit-chatting away in the branching of conversations, the flow of consciousness, how we were talking. We ended up on the M1 carbine, and we were both like, dude, guys don't really glaze the M1 carbine enough. They always are like, oh, I'd rather have a Thompson. Or, yeah, of course, the M1 Garand's the best. And it's like, both of those guns have their merit. The M1 Garand, absolutely phenomenal. But when it comes to the M1 carbine, you are talking about this quasi-modern carbine in a way. And so it's a very practical gun in that sense. Is it the biggest, beefiest round? No, absolutely not. But that's what you're kind of getting into with the intermediate cartridges. It's not an intermediate cartridge because it's like this weird, beefed up pistol round. I mean, we have an example out here because we're shooting the 8mm Mauser, but looking at 30 caliber carbine versus an 8mm Mauser round, it's definitely like crazy to think like, okay, this is going to be way more lethal. And its counterpart, 7.62x54R, 7.7 Jap, and 30-06 or 303 British or 7.5 French. Clearly those large rifle rounds are going to be much more lethal than a little 30 caliber carbine. I guess the nice part, if you really do hit someone with this, you're going to be doing some damage compared to just a 30 cal carbine though. That being said, I'd rather carry around a bunch of 30 cal carbine, given what we know in the modern day. All right, let's do some more shooting and scooting. Maybe you actually earn our paycheck today. Come on, pal. All right, first squad. On me, on me. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. No, stay down, stay down, stay down. I wonder if this was the last guy's like self-defense mag. It's got some like lead, almost looks like hollow points, but filled with lead. This gets kind of sketchy, I'm not gonna lie. It's a weird gun, but it just works so well, in my opinion, for the overall aspects of what a firearm could be, given the conflict you're dealing with, given the settings you'll find yourself in the conflict. And I'm doing a half circle, I don't know why, but it's kind of like this things that tying back into each other. The gun absolutely has its weaknesses. If I wanted to engage targets with iron sights out to distance, you say pushing beyond 300 to 600 yards, the M1 carbine, I will say, is going to rear its head and be like, oh, this is not optimal. That being said, I mean, chances are, though, like if you're a guy carrying a M1 carbine, you're probably some kind of shot caller or special role or an officer, or you just kind of know what's up, you're kind of savvy with it. Reason being, the gun is so light. I think it's only like 5 or 6 pounds at most. And then, of course, you can throw on a spare magazine holder onto the stock. And now in the gun, you have 15 rounds, and then 15 plus 50, you get 45 rounds on the gun, which is pretty sick. All right, you want to bring an extra 30 rounds in a pocket. You can stack it on up, and it's really not that encumbersome. Encumbersome? Is that a word? Encumbering. You know, I talk for a living. I mean, you're carrying a good amount of ammo, especially if you're not like a low-ranking rifleman. Your job is probably to be leading those riflemen and or other aspects of your squad, platoon, company into directing more lethal fire. The carbine absolutely stands out. It's like the first quasi-PDW. It's kind of like an AK when you reload. You gotta do the... I mean, if we're in the 200-yard range, carbine is going to be a pretty standout. Yeah, I don't want to get shot with M1 carbine within 200 yards. I mean, think about this. Think about like you're exchanging fire with an enemy German or an enemy Japanese, and they have a bolt-action rifle. Their rate of fire compared to your rate of fire, you're definitely going to, even if you don't hit them, you're going to keep them suppressed. Suppressive fire! You can deal with them or maybe close the gap or withdraw. Like you can keep their head down longer. Sure, they're shooting a more lethal projectile that has a better velocity. So it's like your point of aim, point of impact, not going to be as aggressive of a drop compared to your carbine round, which is going to see a little bit more drop.
Why do you have Kraut binoculars?
Well, after what Rommel did to us at the Kasserine Pass, I figured I wanted a good souvenir to never forget what they did to our boys. But all of that, dude, it's like all these little nitty-gritty details. Like the overall thing I think of is you have at least 15 rounds in the magazine. And then the gun is so light and so wieldy that it's like when you put it on and you sling it up, it's like you almost forget you have a gun on you because you're like, oh, this isn't bad at all. Like if I had to live with that thing, carbine all day. Carbine all day, every day of the week. I love it, dude. I was thinking about this, and it's like the nitty-gritty autistic gun guy details. You're kind of going down the rabbit hole. You know, I've been just embraced saying rabbit hole on this channel anyways. But you're like really thinking about this stuff, and it's like, dang, yeah, the carbine is actually S tier. Like it's a very good gun. It was designed to be like a personal defense weapon before they even kind of coined the term in that sense. The idea was, it's like they were worried about the German blitzkrieg, breaking through, getting behind our lines, and the rear echelon guys got to defend themselves. The 1911 won't cut it. That's why they need the M1 carbine. And then of course the M1 carbine starts showing up, and I'm sure like the savvy fighters and the guys that have been really well trained, your frontline Joes, are like, yo, this thing is actually pretty dope. I want to run this thing. This is kind of like a bonus, but the carbine saw a really cool configuration with Norwegian resistance where they took a German ZF-41 and managed to get it onto a paratrooper model of the M1 carbine, and it looks freaking dope. What we need to be able to do is actually take this, get rid of the K98K. I don't want the K98K. But then when we take this, and we got to combine the two. There's got to be a way. I could see the vision. Yeah, that would go hard. Could you imagine, dude? Oh, well, let's try it. Let's try it, dude. Gun's hot, let's try it. Like temperature-wise. Now it's really hot. Oh, way low. Way low. Oh! Oh! We did it! I was looking through it. Sometimes your hand is the best mount for your optic. That is a really cool setup. That looks freaking dope because you have such a light recoiling gun. You have a little bit of magnification. It would be better if it was 2 or 3 times, but you have a little bit. And it's like you have this really quasi-modern weapon. I think that would be one of my dream carbine setups. So I think I'm gonna try and set out to make a video on that if I can find someone to gunsmith that into existence. So a lot of people in World War II were quickly figuring out like, yo, the carbine's pretty sick. Like you even see photos of German soldiers using the M1 carbine. They were capturing Allied weapons, like American Allied weapons. They captured Garands, they captured Thompsons, they captured other British weaponry. Yet, of all of those things they captured, you see them actually using the M1 carbine. They were sick with it. They were down to clown. You go past World War II into like say Indochina, the French are running around with the surplus weaponry and they're using M1 carbines in Indochina. The M1 carbine would go on into freaking Vietnam, no problem. And by that point, you know, say Korea or Vietnam, I think they're getting the M2 carbines. The M2 carbine showed up at the tail end of World War II. It's a full auto variant. And by that point, you pretty much have like this American quasi assault rifle in a way. It's not like the true intermediate rifle round, but it's in like the ballpark of the distances that our infantry are engaging each other accurate. That's where it's so like impressive in my mind and where I would say, yes, this is like the best weapon overall because of the realistic distances you're probably gonna start hitting guys of what you're seeing and what they're getting exposed to, where you're ambushing, where you're fighting them. That is where I think a lot of the strength of the carbine lies. And the sick thing about it too, rifle grenades. You can use rifle grenades with an M1 carbine. That's pretty nuts. So you have this like kind of do-it-all package in a way where you can rig up a rifle grenade to your M1 carbine. How good of the rifle grenade standard is it? I have no idea. I've never shot an M1 carbine rifle grenade, but I still love the idea of it. It seems like kind of a leap with that sort of charge in there, but maybe they just fill that thing with powder. I have no idea. But it's doable. It's doable. Not gonna lie, I feel pretty good getting this video off my chest. It was weighing heavy on my conscience. I really wanted to talk about World War II stuff. I've been just enjoying way more historical stuff. Like we cover on the channel a wide variety of topics, whether it's hyper modern, cutting edge firearms, all the way back to the longbow. And I always enjoy getting into World War II stuff. It's my cat's pajamas. Gentlemen, I got nothing else for you. Thanks for watching this video. Godspeed.
YouTube does not like what we do here, but you do. So engage with the video. Like, subscribe, but most importantly, leave me a comment in the comment section down below. The comment helps combat the algorithm, beat the algorithm, destroy the algorithm.